I have an 8 o'clock meeting with my HR director, so I just need to be able to sleep long enough to be ready for that. All right. I do believe we have one personnel update that we need to get, a performance issue that Dr. Thompson would like to bring to our attention. So we're going to add that as C under the closed session, a personnel performance update.
Could we have update on the traffic light, at the school, whatever you call that, the light?
At Capron?
Yes, Capron and down, anywhere.
All of them?
Yes.
Do you know what update you want? Like, well, we're going to add it as a discussion item.
Whether they're working properly.
Okay.
And who is going to take care of it.
Got it. We'll make that item H under information items. All right, any other additions to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move that we approve the agenda as.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Lane. Do I have a second? I hear a second from Mr. Smith. Any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, our agenda is approved. With that, under information items, Dr. Thompson, you are first up, and a presentation on your goals for 2026 and 2027.
Well, good evening, Chairman Rogers and members of the board. Tonight, I'm presenting the proposed organizational goals and monitoring framework for the 2026-27 school year. As you review this presentation, you will notice a strong degree of continuity. The division's mission, vision, and 6 overarching goals remain unchanged from the previous administration. Several action steps also continue from prior work. That consistency is intentional. As the new superintendent, I'm still learning through the structured listening tour and reviewing the division's programs, practices, data, and operations. I do not believe in changing something simply for the sake of change. Where work is effective and aligned with the needs of students, I believe that we should sustain it. Where the evidence indicates a need for improvement, we will respond thoughtfully and strategically to move toward that improvement. Our mission and vision remain the foundation of the division's work. Because they continue to reflect our commitment to student success, safety, partnership, and preparation for the future, I am not recommending changes at this time. The same is true of the 6 division goals. Together, they address the essential responsibilities of the school division: student achievement, school culture and safety, employee development and retention, community partnerships, facilities and fiscal stewardship, and equitable opportunities. For now, I am recommending that we preserve this framework and strengthen how we implement and monitor it. As our work progresses, I may recommend refinements or broader revisions to best align with our developing needs and opportunities. Goal 1, expand learning opportunities and increase student achievement. The first goal remains our primary focus. Much of this work continues existing priorities, including instructional leadership, technology integration, advanced coursework, career and technical education, workforce preparation, early childhood readiness, and year-round learning opportunities. During this transition year, our emphasis will be on determining which strategies are producing results, where implementation is inconsistent, and what additional support schools need. 2 new focus areas will be our Leverage Leadership 3.0 professional development and a VTSS reset. One refinement I'm proposing is greater clarity around monitoring. We will publicly report benchmark results, proficiency, student growth, graduation, attendance, discipline, advanced program participation, work-based learning, and industry credentials. We will use data throughout the year to guide decisions and provide support. The second goal continues the division's commitment to safe, healthy, clean, and welcoming schools. The action steps include transportation, school meals, student wellness, behavior supports, emergency preparedness, facility responsiveness, communication, and positive relationships with students and families. These are areas I'm also exploring through the listening tour because the day-to-day experiences of students, families, and employees are important indicators of organizational health. We'll monitor transportation reliability, meal participation, safety drills, bullying and discipline trends, facility work orders, and student, family, and employee survey results. The goal is to consider both operational data and stakeholder experiences when assessing school climate. The third goal focuses on professional learning and employee retention. Existing priorities such as coaching, professional development, tuition support, stronger onboarding, employee recognition, compensation, wellness, and succession planning remain important. As I continue meeting with employees, I'll be listening carefully to what helps people feel supported, what contributes to vacancies or turnover, and which professional learning opportunities have the greatest impact. One specific goal will be improved teacher recruitment and retention in order to eliminate our dependence on external companies supplying us with virtual and international teachers to fill vacancies. We'll publicly report vacancy and retention rates, new hire trends, professional development, evaluation data, employee surveys, and exit interview themes. These measures should help us identify both immediate staffing needs and longer-term organizational issues. The fourth goal continues the division's emphasis on family and community partnerships. During the listening tour, I've heard repeatedly that communication, transparency, trust, and collaboration matter. We will continue family engagement activities and community partnerships while also expanding opportunities for advisory groups, mentoring, volunteering, internships, business partnerships, and alumni engagement. We'll monitor participation in family events, survey feedback, advisory committee themes, volunteer hours, internships, partnerships, and communication platform usage. More importantly, we will examine whether these efforts are resulting in stronger relationships and meaningful opportunities for students. The fifth goal addresses facilities and fiscal resources. This is an area in which the division must balance continuity with a more comprehensive long-term approach. We'll continue pursuing grants and needed facility improvements while developing a clear capital improvement plan, reducing deferred maintenance, strengthening preventative maintenance, and reviewing financial, human resources, and operational practices. The purpose is not to assume that existing systems are ineffective, but to ensure that they are efficient, transparent, and positioned to meet future needs. One specific goal is to eliminate our division's reliance on external companies to provide facilities, maintenance, and custodial services, and instead return those functions to school division staff. We will report on grant applications and implementation, major capital projects, maintenance backlogs, work order completion, budget planning, audit findings, and procurement timelines. This will provide the board with regular information about both progress and challenges. The sixth goal continues the commitment to making opportunities accessible to all students. This includes advanced coursework, gifted education, preschool, extracurricular activities, intervention services, special education, multilingual learner support, technology, and other instructional resources. As we review these areas, we'll focus not only on whether a program exists, but also on who has access, who participates, and who benefits. We'll monitor achievement gaps, subgroup growth, special education outcomes, early literacy, gifted and preschool enrollment, multilingual learner progress, intervention participation, advanced coursework, and extracurricular involvement. These measures will help us determine whether opportunities are reaching students equitably across the division. The most significant addition to the existing goal framework is this proposed board data update calendar. The calendar establishes a predictable schedule for publicly reporting academic, operational, staffing, climate, and program information throughout the year. It also allows the board to request deeper reviews when additional information is needed. In summary, I'm not recommending major changes to the division's direction at the beginning of my tenure as superintendent. The mission, vision, 6 goals, and many existing action steps provide a sound starting point. My approach during this transition is to listen, learn, review the evidence, preserve what is working, and make changes where they are genuinely needed. As the listening tour continues and additional data become available, I'll bring forward recommendations that are informed by our students, employees, families, community partners, and measurable outcomes. Tonight, I'm seeking the board's feedback on the continued goals, the proposed monitoring measures, and the reporting calendar. Thank you.
So, I guess this would be a good time for us to ask questions or seek any clarity that we have. So, board members, that was a quick run through of proposed goals. What do we have questions about? What would you like to know more about? I'm happy to break the ice, Dr. Thompson, and say, first, this calendar that's up is probably one of my favorite things because I like to know what I'm going to expect in updates. And so I'm going to guess that this is going to drive the superintendent updates that the board receives throughout the year. And they're related to, I think, all of your metrics that you laid out in the plan.
Yes, sir, and big thank you to Rachel Lowe and Bill Hatch for helping me get a great plan for the update calendar. So I think as you'll see tonight with some of the other updates, not just me, but and not just necessarily superintendent's report, but other staff too will join in as we present this. So thank you guys for your hard work on this slide.
One of the things I noticed was that you had indicated an intent to try to move facilities maintenance, all of that stuff, back to county employees. So we're currently under contract with HES. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your plans are to evaluate that contract throughout this year and how we might go about trying to reassume some of those services and just thinking about how we're going to manage that?
Yeah, so as you know, this month I have served double superintendent and the acting director of operations, and so I have been in very close contact with our maintenance supervisor and our maintenance staff through HES. And so as we have talked, I really have seen where I think it will be more efficient for us if we bring those services back, as well as cut some of the overhead costs. But one thing that I am very aware of is that it will take more money in year one. So we obviously, to bring it back, we need to look at costs for acquiring vehicles for our maintenance staff, probably some trucks that they can have that would serve the need of that area that they're in. So we have 2 general maintenance, 1 plumber, 1 person who does HVAC, some electrical, and then 2 carpentry. And so ideally it'd be 1 truck for each maintenance person. And then we would need to look at the condition of tools that exist right now. So one of the big issues I think with the existing HES contract is supplies for custodians is included. Supplies for maintenance is not. And so when any of the maintenance staff need to purchase something, they have to request it of the maintenance supervisor, who has to come and request a purchase order to be done by the director of operations, which really slows down the efficiency of getting things done. There are also some other quirk things that we've seen so far and that finance has pointed out to me, like in the course of last year when there was painting to be done, like a new paintbrush was bought each time instead of like washing them out and reusing. And so I will be speaking with the kind of the next level up of HES staff. Over the next month as our Director of Operations joins the team. Just because that might just be something that they do. That might be something that we could try to get costs down on this year. And then as we go through the year, be able to come back to you and update if we think it's viable to make the change. I have expressed some concerns about the cost of this program to our partners at HES. So it's not a surprise. Discussing it publicly is not going to be a surprise. In terms of custodians, when I had my one-on-ones with our principals, every one of them expressed concerns about the way that the custodial side was working. Each of them talked about when we had custodians as part of the school division, their direct supervisor was the principal. And so when something happened that could be maintenance, could be custodians, a lot of times the custodians were deployed to handle it. One example that came up as a problem before was a child had thrown up at Capron on the walkways outside to the trailers. And so when the principal asked the custodian at the time to clean it up, the custodian said, "Oh, that's outside, I don't do outside." And so she had to call the maintenance side, and then the maintenance side was going to have to go buy something to clean it up. And so what resulted is our principal went outside with a bucket of water and cleaned the vomit up so that the kids could get there. And so again, if need be, I'll go clean the vomit up, but we can't have vomit on the walkways for our children. They got to go. And so I think just again, getting these two programs back under our control will allow us to be more efficient and save money. And again, it is a goal. Sometimes we shoot for the moon and we don't make it. So if we get closer to the end of the year, it doesn't look like this is feasible, then we will again go through contract negotiations and try to get some of the issues that we're seeing with HES improved for the next round if we need to. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I think from our history, from our transition time period, one of the reasons that the board elected to move in the direction of the recommendation to outsource was recruitment and being able to identify a sufficient number of staff to be able to meet those kind of skilled trade requirements, the plumber, electrician, carpentry within the division. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of some of that history. You probably have already done some of that research. I think it's also, to tie it in a little bit to the CTE and the work that we do here, those trades are also high demand trades in industry right now. Shipbuilding, they're looking for electrical in shipbuilding, they're looking for electrical in data centers, they're looking for plumbing in shipbuilding, they're looking for all of these things. And as we put that emphasis on making sure that we're building out a CTE program that's best for our students and best for career opportunities for those students, I think that also then lends itself to how do we even leverage opportunities in our own division for those students to be able to move into at some point as apprentice and learning and growing. So I appreciate the thought process around it. I appreciate the thoughts about cost savings, but also the realistic look that, hey, there might be some one-time investment that we need to get up front to make sure that our folks are equipped to do the job that we would ask them to do. We'll obviously need to do some inventory of what we've got, because we certainly shouldn't have gotten rid of all of the supplies that we had. So hopefully there's still some things around from a couple of years ago. Board members, any other thoughts around this? I mean, it's been, I think we're 2 years into HES. Any thoughts about the proposal?
I think we've gotten some feedback on HES as the years have gone by. It's been now 3 years or so. And everything, same thing seemed to be negative. Management process, getting things done. So I think it's time we looked at bringing it back home.
Slide your finger on the button.
Yeah, well, I agree totally. My last career, we privatized a lot of stuff and ended up biting us, and we ended up going back to in-house. So maintenance, I've never liked privatized maintenance, because they're in it for profit and not for pride of the school. Seems like people that are employed here will give a little bit extra effort compared to somebody working for another company just collecting a check.
And one other thing that I should have said earlier, if we are able to do this and bring it back in-house, I would want the employees that are currently working for HES on the maintenance side and the custodian side to feel assured that we would give them the first opportunity to come back. I know we've got, I think when the decision to go to HES was made, we were down to one in-house maintenance staff person. So the other people that have come on board and are serving our schools, like on the maintenance side, I think are great. I'm really enjoying working with the maintenance supervisor, and so I don't want it to come across as if being at all negative to any of the employees on either side. I think it's really more just in terms of the logistics of how you serve kind of like two bosses at the same time that are working for different areas. So and would also I think the third thing in terms of cost, for my one-on-ones, it seems to me that some of the positions got a higher salary when they went to HES than what previously we had been paying. And so again, a goal may not be able to meet it because they don't have the benefits, as we heard last month. My goal would be to keep salaries consistent and add the benefits, but I think that we would just need to budget out, especially in the first year, in as fair a way as possible to try to keep employees where they are, but then also help, if we do have to cut salaries at all to make it work, help the employees understand where the total compensation package would be the same or more by the time benefits and salary were included, instead of what's happening right now with basically just the salary side.
Mr. Smith, did you have something to add?
I think in years past, when we had employees, and maintenance and all of it, we had a certain amount of pride among the custodians. This is my building. One of the things we did when we built the elementary schools, we built them from the same floor plan, so people could be interchangeable and move over. When we have to get them to work in another way, they cross over. But just getting back to that pride.
Yeah, if you have somebody that buys into the mission and vision that you're doing, I think that's a key to making sure that our staff feel valued and pick up and do things like rinse off the ramp when they get called out to do that. So I appreciate that recommendation, and we'll look forward, I think, to some updates on how we can move that ahead and what that might be in terms of budget and transition planning and all of those kinds of things. You mentioned around the purchasing process, so I can see how the purchasing process is, it's always cumbersome when you're in an organization because you've got to have a couple of people sign off on certain things. One of the things that I've found effective has been to kind of create we're approved to purchase these things when we need it, so basically a pre-approved list of certain things that will come up in maintenance items and things like that. So if we're looking at transitioning back to us and ownership, approvals for purchases still have to happen, but in our policy, we can potentially consider what is on that pre-approved list that maybe doesn't have to run through 6 layers at central office in order to buy a hammer, if we need a hammer or a box of nails, but that we can do that, and then be able to do some reconciliation on that. We do that like with food orders and things like that at my agency, and as well as some of our building supplies. So that might be one way to make things a little bit more effective and efficient as well. All right, board members, anything else on that or the rest of the presentation from Dr. Thompson?
Thompson, are you going to do instructional updates? Or is this just a whole?
This is just about the goals for the year, and then the instructional updates for tonight. Ms. Bogue's going to do, and Ms. Doyle's going to do, and then as we go through, I think they'll help me out.
we are, thinking about positions, people who are, I heard you saying you're gonna try to keep the, custodial staff and keep those who are in those positions. Well, if we can go back and revisit transportation, if those workers did not receive poor ratings for their performance, I would like us to keep them as well. We want to make sure that we don't, I mean, morale will plummet if people can't feel like if they do a good job, they can keep their job. Transferring them, okay, they still have a job, but then they're not doing what they were comfortable doing. And that they felt like they did a good job. And we want them to always feel assured that, you know, we have their back. So, I love that we're gonna do that for custodians, for maintenance, but I would like to see us do that for them.
I would like to see that kind of morale be boosted throughout our system. Professional level, teachers, classified employees, so forth. Because it's win-win. Okay? I've always said that there's 1,000 ways to run a company, only one way to treat people.
Any other discussion?
Just a quick question. Within the cleaning company, who evaluates the employees within the company? Or have you spoke to some employees in that position? Where I'm going with this is the head honcho of AGS. Do they do evaluations on their employees?
They do, yep, and I think that HES has responded to concerns that the division had, especially on the custodian side, by making some changes with, the supervisor's role. And so I think that the supervisor role for maintenance and the supervisor role for custodians is who evaluates those. And I think as the new director of operations comes on as well, he'll work closely with them. And so, I mean, for the amount of the contract, if there is an employee issue, one of the advantages to the division is that we're not handling the HR side, the company is. And so, like if we said we don't want person A to come back here, then HES, it's up to them to decide what they're gonna do and if they're gonna put them in a different place or not. So that is my understanding so far, and if it changes, I'll come back.
If plan B is that we retain the services of HES, that's a good contract consideration to take into account that, that we retain the right to approve any employee placed at a school, at the sole discretion of the division. So that could be a contract amendment that we could ultimately look for if we need to. And I think I also heard principals wanting more ownership of being able to dictate, you know, these are the things that need to be done in my building. So I think that's an important consideration too. We charge our principals with a lot of responsibility. I mean, they've got a lot going on. The last thing I honestly need a principal to worry about is who's going to take care of the cleanup on aisle B. I would like them focused on our teachers' professional development, making sure that we're following our pacing and that we're keeping all the other things under control, including behavior and student support in line. So.
I have one more question about the contract. Will the contract be from year to year or school to school, your calendar? What is our contract? Year to year, like January to December, or September to?
July 1 to June 30.
Okay.
And there are provisions in where if we had the money and we wanted to go in a different direction now, that you can get out of it along the way. I think you can get out along the way if certain performance metrics aren't met, or as long as, and I don't have a contract with you tonight, but a specific number of days in advance it could be.
Will it be hard to, once they leave, will it be hard for
So I think one thing that each individual employee is going to have to consider is if they want to work for the school division or they want to keep working for HES based on the salary that we're able to give, the benefits. I mean, some of the employees have not been school division employees anywhere, so they're used to working on the private side, and so they may not want to come over. So I mean, I think that's one thing that fits into this overall plan is seeing how many people are interested in coming over with us if we do it, how many are not. Then if they don't want to come, like making sure that we're able to hire ourselves, because if not, we could be in the same spot that caused us to get with HES in the first place. So I think there are some other considerations besides like trucks and tools that we just need to kind of bring into. And again, I think the ultimate like big why for this is really about the overall approach for kind of what Mr. Smith was getting at, like making sure that all of our employees feel like they're part of Southampton County Public Schools. Like we can't always put folks in the place that they want to be. I mean, I coached a long time, coached softball, and I had people that wanted to pitch, but they were better suited in the outfield. And so, I mean, that's always my go-to when I have hard conversations with staff is like, we're going to work, if you've done a good job, we're going to work to make sure that your check stays the same, even if you're not in the spot that you want to be in. And then we can work to it. But so again, like that might be the situation with HES folks, like they got an increase in the salary. We might not be able to keep that exact one if we bring them back and do benefits, but like making sure that everybody has a good, honest conversation up front. Like, hey, we're thinking about this, and then being able to bring it back to you with a plan, especially if we need to have the budget look a little bit different than what it did, at least in the first year that we changed in order to get it back to where it's feasible.
Anything else, board members? Hearing nothing, our next agenda item is an update on the capital improvement plan. And I think you're going to ask us for some action on this at some point too.
Yes, I'm going to ask you for some action on this one. So in preparation for the school construction assistance program grant, one of the items on the rubric for whether or not you earn the 65 points to be considered or not is the capital improvement plan, and being able to say yes, your project is on the board's approved plan, yes or no. And so one thing that I realized was that our plan for the building enveloping that we discussed last month at Southampton Middle School in Cape Print was on the budget presentation, but I could not find where it was on the capital improvement plan. So as I started in June, Dr. Melby had shared with me the internal document that said 2024 capital improvement plan on it. And so what we've done is amend that document. And so it was, we knew it was going to be hard to see for the folks watching at home, so it's not on the screen. But remember, if you have your computer, if you will go to the attachment for that item, then you can see the document. And I'll just kind of start at the beginning and briefly go page by page if that suits. All right, so the first page, the update is tonight's date. The second page updates my name and our board members' names and positions. I did not highlight the table of contents page, but as stuff shifted, the page numbers changed. So the table of contents did update without highlights. Assuming that there's no changes for right now to vision, mission, and goals, that stayed the same. The executive summary stayed the same. The division overview stayed the same. When I got to the student population section, I added a column. So you can see what the numbers were as of April 1st, 2024. The new column has the numbers as they were presented as in the budget presentation. So the date that was listed in that was February 4th, 2026, and that's why I used those. just so it would be consistent with what we had presented publicly before. You know, as summertime comes, kids leave, kids come, we'll have a new group of children coming in. So this, my hope is, again, as the new director of operations comes, this will be a living document that just kind of gets us to where we are right now as of trying to apply for grants this month. The next page broke down the number of students by school, you know, and that'll be important for us as we look at proposed new construction opportunities throughout, about whether our number of kids is exceeding, especially at Capron, the number of students that the building was built for. Next page is the facility summary. Again, this was what was already in the plan. I have not changed or added anything in that part. All right, getting into the part on page 8 that talks about renovations. This is where I started to add some things based on our discussion. So first thing that I did was to explain how we're going to use the terms renovation, major maintenance and replacement, and proposed new construction. Because I think some projects, like, is it a renovation or is it a replacement? So we've tried to, or maintenance, tried to lay that out so that it's clear about what we put in which place. For renovations, the things that were already there were technology infrastructure and the athletic complex at Southampton High School. So those two things were listed, didn't make any changes. And then our improved spectator areas, including the bleacher replacements. The bleacher replacements were one thing that were on this year's budget request to the board supervisors. Bottom of that page starts major maintenance and replacements, and these are the two projects that we talked about last month. So the first one is the division-wide classroom and building security door hardware upgrades. So later on, we'll show you some pictures, kind of where we are with some of that and as to why it's good. All right, so this is an example. Bill is messing with me. These are our students by race. They're not on page 9, but good information anyway. Bill, you're messing with those pictures, aren't you? I'm gonna just keep on talking when the pictures come back. We'll come back up to it. Okay, so we talked about the keys last time, and the classroom security door hardware and building ingress security door hardware. We have on July the 15th, Mr. Charity and I walked all of our buildings with a sales representative who was able to make lots of notes. We started at 7 in the morning and we finished that night at 6:30. So our little feet were tired. Mr. Charity was done with Dr. Thompson that day, but I appreciate him and everything that he showed me as we walked in all of our spaces. We have a lot of keys to lots of different locks, and there's a picture that will show you of what one school secretary's key and the principal's keys look like in order to get into all the buildings. Another issue, especially in terms of this security door hardware, is that some of our classroom door locks, like house locks, like your houses are probably a little more secure than some of our classrooms are, which we hope that there's never an issue, but we want our kids and our staff to be safe if there is, and that kind of door would easily be, there we go. That's just what some of our classroom doors are keyed with. So they could easily be gotten into. And these are the keys for just one school. So you can see if you had to get in a quick minute to something, unless you broke the door down, it would be hard. So our project, which we've gotten a quote for each school, the total estimate is $308,000. And it's itemized by school campus. The high school number includes the VOTEC, which is a little bit higher. Kind of two buildings in there. But we will have key accountability. We will have a key hierarchy system. So a classroom teacher with their key will work their door. The principal's key will work every key in the school. The top level, Dr. Cherry, myself, Director of Operations, Maintenance Supervisor, Maintenance folks, their key will be a grandmaster that will work all the locks. This company also has control keys, so if we want to have maintenance or testing or anything else to be on its own, there'll be control keys that the Grandmaster would not work. You have to have the specific key for that one. And then we've also talked about areas. So like our kitchen area, you know, we don't want folks roaming around in the kitchen with all the safety things in there. And so we can have like groupings. So like the kitchen doors would all have the same one. So like the teacher's key wouldn't work that, but all the cafeteria staff would have their key. So that's kind of the goal for that. And so we are going to apply for the security grant for this project as well as for some lighting at the middle school. And so we're hopeful that it will be approved and we can get $250,000 for that. The second project is the building envelope restoration, which we talked about last month as well. And then I'm getting into the, keeping on going. Nothing changed about that. We were able to find a proposal from 2025 for Southampton Middle School. Mr. Hatch and I called the company and don't think that there has been one for capering, so it was kind of a guesstimate on the cost for that. And so we still have some lingering questions about making sure that that amount would be right. The next three things were already part of our capital improvement plan. So HVAC system, comprehensive replacement modernization, technology infrastructure, again on the maintenance side versus the renovation side. And then sort of an in general blurb about school renewal and facility modernization program and school bus fleet replacement and lifestyle renewal. All right, and then the last section for this for proposed new construction has our Capron Elementary School and our Southampton Middle School, and then just added a little blurb about long-term capital planning that we know that replacement of aging facilities represents a significant financial commitment and requires skillful planning, prioritization, and collaboration with our local government partners. And so our projects will continue to be evaluated through facility condition assessments, enrollment trends, operational needs, and available funding opportunities. In the 2024 plan, there was a 10-year plan, and so that's on page 13. And so I have highlighted and struck through the dates that like we either passed or we're not on track to meet. So like flooring replacement reconfiguration of the high school and middle school band portions, so it says completed by 2028. That's not on our current plan that's been approved so far. So that one might need to strike as we go. But for right now, like theoretically, it's possible for us to continue it. But you can see that these things aren't quite ready yet. The next page is what was submitted on March 9th, like in that presentation to the school board and to the board of supervisors in the budget request. And then 15 is the update that we were going to ask for to make sure that the key project and the classroom security door hardware and building ingress security door hardware project.
She's practicing.
I'm practicing. I'm practicing. I'll get it right. No, we're not calling it rekeying. Nope. Bigger than that. That one's there, and the building enveloping, and then again I added a little bit of words to the HVAC system. That slightly tweaked the name from what it was a little bit earlier, since I put it earlier in the plan. And then we kept everything else the same. So board, I would respectfully ask that you approve this document so that tomorrow night I can take it with me to the board of supervisors meeting and share with them. And then also, as we apply for grants that ask for the capital improvement plan, we can submit this full document.
All right, so Dr. Thompson, thanks. Essentially, the nuts and bolts of the additions are we're amending the plan to add in a few projects and rename one of them. So we're adding in the classroom and building security door hardware upgrades. We're adding in the enveloping and restoration at Southampton Middle and Cape Ray.
It was already on there. It was just number one plan.
Okay, so that's just been slid down one priority spot, and then renaming the division-wide HVAC upgrades. Board members, do you have questions, comments about the proposal from Dr. Thompson?
I think it's a very positive thing to have the key system set up, because my experience as a teacher here was just like those keychains. And when something happens and you need to find a key fast, you might be helping 2 or 3 teachers unlock doors. If everybody's on the same page, that could be very positive.
Yeah, I'd kind of like totally agree with that too, because the division I work in, I hold Mr. Charity's position. I got 6 keys and I can get anywhere I need to go in any school. Yeah, that would be a great benefit.
I'm surprised it hasn't been done before. Except school I worked in, St. Pete. I mean, it's just too old. I mean, some of these schools are very new to have this old type of door issue.
And some of them are in better, like some of the doors and the locks are in better shapes than others. But again, if we're gonna fix it, kind of get back to like Mr. Bridger's example, like it's nice to carry a few keys and be able to get into what you need to really quickly.
I would guess that part of the problem is we'll just use Nottoway as an example. If you're trying to upgrade everything for the division, even though Nottoway is a newer school and might have some better key hierarchy than others, to try to match the system that was made even, well, I guess we're still 25 years into Nottoway, because I know it was built before we moved down here, so it's hard to believe that school's aged that much, but.
It also allowed us, with the system that we're going with, there's a removable core, and so Mr. Charity, our Director of Operations Maintenance, whoever would be tasked with this, would be able to change out cores themselves. So again, it's more of an investment in an upfront cost, but then bringing something back into us so that we wouldn't send folks to the hardware store to make their own keys. Like, we would be able to do that in-house. So again, a little bit more, and we won't have to worry about who's been issued keys and whether they turn them back in, because if somebody leaves and there's an electronic database for it, if we don't get it back, again, our staff can go in and change it out, and if they took the key with them, that's fine, we'll just change it out, and we can do that ourselves.
This is approved tonight. When will they start on this?
So we would wait. If approved tonight, what we'll do is we'll submit the security equipment grant, and we're hopeful that we would get the full amount. Because if we did, we'd pay the difference between the $250 and our total grant would be $312 when we include the middle school, and so we pay the difference between the $250 and the $312.
That was my second question about financing.
Yes. If we don't get approved for the grant, or we don't get approved for the full amount, then I would want to come back and us to have a discussion, because it might be something that we can't do with this year's budget, but we could put into a next year's budget. I do think that this is something that the division needs.
Did you look at electronic keys? I went to a class at Fairfax, and all the teachers had ID badges, and they had electronic devices, and it only worked over there, like the front door of the school in their classroom.
Gotcha.
And if the teacher got to let go, technology just went in and hit a button. They can't have access. I mean, I don't know what that cost would be compared to what we're looking at. It's probably gonna be more.
I think it would be a lot more. I think a next phase of this that we would like to do is make sure that we've got the electronic door readers on all of our doors that are external. And so, like, we kind of like to do this part for the inside doors, and then what you're talking about for the outside doors. But same thing, I mean, that having that log about who's using it and being able to shut them out if they're not supposed to be there is great. Again, I'm probably a little old school, but I still like the regular keys for the classroom doors, just from if something happened with the electronics, like either they went haywire or electricity surged and we didn't have it, I want the teacher to be able to lock the door if something happened. And that was one thing that Mr. Charity and I talked about with the sales rep was different options that we had for making sure that a teacher would not have to go into the hallway to lock the door themselves. And so we had, there was kind of two options that we discussed as feasible. One was, he called it a thumb. It was a thumb something that basically anybody in the room could lock from the inside. And then there was the one where the teacher had to have the key. And Mr. Charity and I decided to go with the one that teacher had the key, just because, I mean, we deal with children and sometimes they don't make the wisest decisions, and we don't want the teacher getting locked out of the room and the kids be inside. So again, as long as the teacher's in the room, lock it from the inside, don't have to go in the hallway, is another, again, security feature of this key project.
I think my one comment is, while we have the option to replace cores, I think we particularly need if we're able to move forward with this, a strong policy on getting items back. I think the biggest fear is that one of those master keys ends up missing, and then you'd be replacing all the cores. So I do think making sure that we update our HR policies, and as people leave the division, that we're collecting all that equipment and taking whatever legal steps we need to take to make sure that we get equipment back as per our request. Board members, does anybody want to make a motion on the action items requested? So let me just make sure I clarify your motion, Mr. Grizzard. Are you motioning that we would amend the capital improvement plan as presented?
I move we amend the capital improvement plan as amended.
All right, a proper motion by Mr. Grizzard and a proper second by Ms. Lane. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the capital improvement plan has been amended. You are free to include that in the grant application and to share with our County Board of Supervisors as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work on that. I know that was a team effort, and I appreciate the work that goes into trying to assess an entire division worth of locks and doorknobs and all of that. Sure. Yep. So Mr. Hatch has some updates on the security grant application that's related to the capital improvement plan, right?
Yeah.
Take it away, Mr. Hatch.
Mr. Hatch would like to be able to see. So you saw some of the slides, we kind of bounced around a little bit between the two presentations. Yeah. We kind of bounced around because they're kind of related. We're doing what we're doing because we want to be able to get this stuff done. So I did want to show you, this is just a screenshot of what the grant application looks like. Probably the easiest grant in the world to apply for is the form you fill out. This is the grant that you probably, if you've been on the board any length of time, have heard us get all kinds of stuff with. It's an annual grant. We get it practically every year in some shape or form. We have used those to do the card swipes on the outside doors. That's where that original money came from. Right now, we got money to do cameras and security camera systems and those kind of things. That's what this past year paid for. So this week, the grant application is due for this upcoming school year. And as you already know, the goal is to apply to get the funding for the security hardware for the classrooms and the security hardware, if needed, for the exterior doors of the schools. That is what is allowed for in the grant. One nice thing about this grant is it will pay for 75% of the cost of whatever it is you buy. So we do have to come up with a 25% match. The maximum amount that you can get funded in the grant is $250,000, which would mean that the maximum amount of money you could spend on a project would be $250,000 plus the 25%. And that would be $312,500. So that is what we intend to apply for. Now, this grant can also be used for other things, whatever amount of money is left over from the door hardware. The middle school has a couple of outside lights that need replacing pretty badly in the teacher parking lot. They have requested that as just part of their regular, hey, if you do the security grant this year, we would like you to apply for this. So because the money doesn't come all the way to $312,000, whatever's left, the couple of $1,000s that it is, we're going to apply for those lights for the middle school. Other than that, those are the only two items that we intend to apply for. Quick screenshot of what it looks like. We answer the questions at the top, and then we fill in the categories at the bottom, and we have to do that per school. Again, it only applies to instructional spaces or exterior doors, and we're working with the company to try to get all that finalized. Hopefully sooner than wait until the end of the week. So hopefully next couple of days we'll have this figured out. We did kind of bounce around, so I showed you some of these pictures already, which were, this is what my back door looks like at my house, maybe, you know, this is some middle school locks. These are not what one would call, I think, security locks. And so the purpose of the grant is to take locks that are not security locks and bring them up to code and bring them up to what is considered to be secure today. So, and you saw the keys. I did want to show you, I mean, you can, some of the locks, even though they may not work or be broken at some of the schools, we do have some versions of some of these, but that is kind of what we're going to and what we're going from. And that may not be the specific model, but that was just something I found that is a classroom door lock that is sold by that company that we're dealing with. Okay. So you can see a lot different than what some of the other ones look like. That's pretty much all I have. Are there any questions about the security grant?
Is that gonna cover new doors if needed?
I think right now it's just the actual lock hardware. It is a allowable thing on the grant if the door needs to be replaced. And if necessary, we could of course apply for that in later years.
Well, fingers crossed that we'll hopefully get the grant. Otherwise, we'll be back here having a conversation about where we can scrape a few pennies out of the couch cushions to try to buy a couple of locks. Please, Dr. Thompson, also keep us up to date on the lighting issues for the middle school. Like, I don't want that to drop off the radar just because it's not an official capital improvement plan item. It's a renovation that needs to probably happen. That's a big safety measure, especially as we've got sports teams and all that kind of stuff that are using these facilities after hours and maybe even pre-dawn hours. So, and who knows what'll happen with daylight savings time changes. We might have kids rolling into school while it's still dark out. So that's one we definitely got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and that's on the gymnasium, not the auditorium side. Dr. Barfield did send pictures of those, and they definitely need to be replaced.
Thank you. I think that moves us down to some preliminary SOL data. No?
Hang on a second.
Hold on.
One other update. So when we talked last month about the building enveloping project, we were planning to apply for the SCAP grant, which is due tonight at midnight. So Mr. Hatch and I have talked with Mr. VJ from BBOE today about our application. If you look in board docs, I asked Ms. Ortis to point to or to upload last year's SCAP grant application, which we were not awarded. What Mr. Hatch and I realized is that we would be submitting nearly an identical grant to what did not get funded last year. And so, honestly, we were trying to call and figure out how we could get more points on this year's rubric. But what we learned in the course of the conversation is that if we're awarded this grant this year, the most that we could get is 20% of the total project cost. So, if you look back at the last page of the capital improvement plan, you would see that our estimated cost for the building enveloping project is $2.3 million. We have 1.7. We have a proposal from a company for, right? It's a year old, but we have a proposal. We don't have a proposal for catering. That's something that we can work toward getting. But if awarded, we're only getting 20% of that. If awarded, we would be on the hook, or the board of supervisors would be on the hook for finishing out the rest of the money. And it would prevent us from being able to get that grant basically for the next couple of years, maybe, I can't remember if he said 2 years or 5 years, for a bigger project where we could still be awarded 20% of the bigger project. So, well, we made a decision that we're asking you to bless. We still have time if you tell us to change it. It's not midnight yet. But we decided that it would be better to wait and not apply for the building enveloping project tonight instead get a real number for the building enveloping for Capron, and then also try to have some opportunities to talk with the Board of Supervisors about building a new Capron Elementary School. If we get numbers for that and then apply for the SCAT grant in the next round in January, there's a potential that we could get 20% of the total cost of building new Capron Elementary School. The 20% that we could get would allow us to do advanced planning with architects, engineers, start on that. But in effect, we could get more money from the grant to possibly help us do that bigger project. If we apply for this and we did get it, then us getting the 20% of the 2.3 million could cause us to miss out on the 20% of the 22.5 or more million, depending on what the estimated costs are at that time. So again, our recommendation is to pause on that until January.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, yes, please.
We can actually also apply for the enveloping at the same time that we apply for the Capron grant, and it would not be held against us because it would not have been before money, it would be at the same time money. So waiting to apply for the enveloping of the middle school at the same time that you figure out what we're going to do about Capron seemed like the best course of action, because we could do it still, but we wouldn't take a hit. So we're not saying we wouldn't do it. We would just say we need to delay it so that we do it together in one combination project, well, application, so that we're not penalized, because one of the things that they evaluate when they are evaluating whether they're going to give you money is, did you get any recently? Even if it's just $1. You got some recently, so you get deducted. And so we don't want to be on the got some recently list for small money when we could be on the get some in 6 months list for big money. Yeah. So we don't have to abandon that project, we just have to pause it.
So you're asking, is it okay to proceed with a pause for 6 months when the next round of applications will open up? So we would have been essentially getting $460,000 if we would apply this time. And to delay by 6 months allows us to put a more comprehensive proposal together to include the replacement for Capron if the supervisors are on, which based off of the estimates to replace Capron would mean that we would be somewhere between $4.5 and $4.96 million in grant funding that would include the building enveloping and the replacement of Capron. So essentially you're asking, we can do a better application, but we can have 10 times as much grant dollars awarded and not have a penalty for applying again in the future to try to do 2 successive projects, do it all at once.
Yes, and you could still apply for the middle school to get the money for the middle school.
I know I just said what you said, I just needed to make sure it made sense in my head that I heard what you said.
And I guess one other, we would, if we're applying for a new Capron, we would not apply probably for the windows at Capron, because there is a part of this grant that says if you're awarded, you cannot replace the school. And again, I'm stuck on whether it's 2 years or 5 years. And I apologize.
That it was a lot more years.
It was more
I think
years.
it was at least 5 years.
Yeah, and so and it had to be, and we checked on this with the man, Mr. BJ. He said that it has to remain an educational facility. So where we were talking about potentially Capron, if we build a new one, not tearing the current building down, it would have to stay in use for students. Like, just as an example, it couldn't be the new central office because that's not considered an educational facility. So I think it would be good for us to consider, like, which path would be, if we are blessed enough to get to build a new Capron, like, what's going to be our plan for the old Capron, which would help us know how to apply for other opportunities as well.
Board members, questions, comments? Do you feel like you need us to affirm that recommendation to not apply for that grant? I don't know that did we take formal action on that in the last meeting? I think we just gave you
I think
permission to go ahead
And explore and talk
do
to
what
the
you
board of
do.
supervisors, I don't think so, but as long as, I mean, if you guys are good with us not applying for SCAT at this point and instead applying for January, that's what Mr. Hatch and I will do, and how about unless you vote otherwise?
Yeah, it seems like it makes sense to me to do a better and more organized formal proposal for a larger scale project, provided that we can get the support locally for the additional dollars. It's still going to cost us, there's still going to be an 80% price tag that's got to be picked up for those, and that's going to be a county level decision that we'll have to articulate our case for. And thank you for the comment on the central office, because I know that's part of our capital improvement plan, is thinking about what central office is, and if we were to do the enveloping for Capron, we couldn't just pivot that to a new central office, because that was one of my questions. But I think the last question I have is, what risk do we have by delaying 6 months without getting the enveloping process started or taken care of? Current condition of the school, is there anything that we need to make sure we're taking care of now, because we're going to be now at least another 6 months back on schedule with any work that might need to be done to make sure that we've got those properly weathered in?
So the windows are definitely a concern for our maintenance supervisor, and I think our other staff. I am very excited that the new director of operations is coming on August the 3rd, because I would like to defer answering that question until he comes and looks at them with his general contractor ability and can possibly see ways that we might be able to extend life or fix certain things without having to go to the full 1.7 million. If again, very high on our capital improvement plan is to try to replace the middle school as well. Like I just want to be a good steward of our funds both ways. Like if we're not intending for any like reasonably quick amount of time, to build a new middle school, then we know we need to do something about the windows. But do we need to do it to the tune of 1.7 million? And since the proposal's a year old at this point, I think we really need to get the company back in and make sure that their numbers haven't changed on us. So I'd like to come back to you on that.
I think I'd like to maybe appoint a couple of board members that might be able to kind of serve as our liaisons with you guys as you're looking at that with the operations manager, and we're thinking about some of these construction plans. Smaller, a couple of us that can have that firsthand knowledge is usually really helpful, so that we're not having to grab all of the updates in the meetings. Any board members have specific interest in wanting to poke around in windows and doors and other things?
I do. 100%.
All right, anybody gonna arm wrestle Mr. Grizzard and Mr. Williams over that opportunity? All right, so Dr. Thompson, Mr. Grizzard, and Mr. Williams will serve as your capital improvement subcommittee to help you work through that. You can keep them updated and let them know when it would be good to meet with you and new operations manager and poke around.
Love it. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ms. Lorraine. She's been so helpful with all of our grants. So I appreciate you being here tonight and everything you've done with Mr. Hatch as well on both of these grants.
Okay. All right. We will note on your evaluation that you've served admirably as our director of operations for a couple of weeks here. So preliminary SOL data. I think Ms. Bogue, you're going to come and wow us.
All right, good evening, everybody. So this is designed to be a brief, common sense snapshot of pass rates in particular. It should just be clear as we go into this to start that this is not an accountability prediction. This is a snapshot of pass rates. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward. Also, Ms. Artist does have handouts for you as well that match this presentation with a little bit of extra context. There we go. So we did have the goals in here just as a driving factor behind a lot of the things that we're looking at. Just as a reminder that these are here. We can pop back to these if needed. So the first graph is the combined pass rate by content for this school year. So we're looking at math, reading, science, and history. You'll notice writing is excluded. We're looking only at reading, English reading. You should note that science in the elementary schools is tested only in 5th grade, and at the middle school is tested only in 8th grade. 8th grade covers all 3 contents, so 6th grade material, 7th grade material, and 8th grade material is all tested in 8th grade, and then 4th and 5th grade material is all tested in 5th grade. History, similar, Virginia Studies is only tested in 5th grade, and only civics for middle school. Civics is self-contained just to that 8th grade year. So when you're looking at these values, just please keep in mind that you're looking at a lot more students in the math and reading bars than you're looking at in the science and history bars. So overall, on the right, you'll see the legend for Capron, Meharon, Nottoway, Riverdale Middle School, and High School. And you can see some of those trends as far as secondary versus elementary and what the different gaps look like. You see that larger gap for math between elementary and secondary, closer for reading, and then we do see some more fluctuation with science and then with history as well at certain schools. Are there any questions about what you're seeing on this graph? Okay, this is a net pass rate comparison looking at school year 22-23 compared to 25-26. These are, again, our estimates for 25-26. VDOE has not published that school quality report yet or released their final accountability information yet for those pieces. This is just a straight subtraction, looking at your 25-26 value and subtracting your 22-23 value. So bars below the graph are going to be that negative, meaning that where we stand currently is not as strong as where we stood in 22-23. This does not take into account any of the pathway between, it's just a point-to-point comparison. So you can see those differences as far as history in particular. You can see most of those bars are in the negative. Science, not as strongly, but many of those bars are in the negative for science as well. Math and reading, with the exception of a couple of our schools, are mostly positive. You can see particularly large values for reading for Riverdale, math for Meharon, and reading for Capron. Are there any questions about what you're seeing here on the net pass rate comparison?
Any major changes to standards that occurred year over year that we should know that might impact any of this?
Absolutely. So during the course of all of this comparison, you had a changeover in math standards, in reading standards. Science had a 2-part implementation, so the 2018 standards were delayed by COVID, and then were implemented several years later after COVID for everything except earth science and chemistry. Earth science and chemistry remained on 2010 for that period of time until this past year, where in the spring they were tested on the 2018 standards for the first time. So that's science, and then history had to change over as well. So yes, all 4 changed over in that period of time, absolutely. And we'll see some more detailed graphs in a moment where you'll be able to see year by year. So that way you're able to see the individual years. And you can see the impact too of some other changes that have happened, things like virtual instruction, changes in staffing, other things that may correlate with some of these changes. Any other questions? Okay, so these are the pass rate trends for mathematics, again looking from 22-23 to 25-26 by school. And they just go in order from left to right, so 22-23 on the left for each school, going through to 25-26 on the right side of each bar for the school. And you can see the general increase or just fluctuation around a central point for your elementary schools. Fluctuation around a central point, a little bit of a decrease there for middle school, but a much lower absolute value. And then for high school, you do see that gradual increase and then that drop this year. Are there any questions about what you're seeing there? And your handout has a little more context as to some of the factors that may have played a role. There's individual, staff members that make an impact, of course, and so folks coming in and coming out can move these bars depending on what they teach and whether it's SOL contested. But there are other factors at play as well, like we've discussed a little bit before, instructional practices, virtual learning, many different pieces in this puzzle. Any questions about the mathematics?
It's been 4 years you've given us data, and it doesn't seem like math at middle school is improving at all. So we're gonna have to do something to turn that program around.
Can I speak to that? We have made, and I'm pretty sure I went to the conference and they said it would pass. We have made the middle school a Title I school. And, we have just at the end of the year, I think it was, May, that we were able to hire an instructional coach for the middle school for math and for reading. So we have, high hopes for that, and then also making it Title I, we'll be able to put more resources in the middle school.
So you're doing, you're hiring a math and a reading.
Well, the instructional coach is for both. It's one instructional coach, and she will be working with the reading and math teachers. For the Title I position, it will be a reading specialist that will incorporate math concepts like reading across the curriculum type in her lessons. But we haven't hired one yet. But
Reading and math, one person's gonna do both of those?
for the instructional coach,
For the instructional coach, okay.
well, at least it's a movement forward.
It's a movement, but
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, ma'am, and if I may interject, a division math coach has been hired, and she is housed, her base is the middle school, so she's doing quite a bit of work with middle schools as well. It's Miss Susan Street.
okay, great.
Any other questions about mathematics?
The instructional coach, is the instructional coach, that background, English or math?
She's been a math teacher.
She's been a math, so we have two people with that math background.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay. These are the same types of values, but for reading. And again, writing is not included for the high school, middle school, or elementary school levels. Do you see that general increase at Capron, smaller increase at Meharon, gradual increase, and then a little bit of fluctuation there at the end for Nottoway. Dramatic increase at Riverdale this year, but before that, steady. Middle school, fairly steady with a drop over the past 2 years relative to 2 years ago. And then a gradual drop at the high school.
Was there some magic dust that we used at Riverdale and Capron in the last school year to bring up those reading scores? Was there anything, lessons learned that we can share division-wide that helped with that increase?
I would be happy to call up Mrs. Doyle to reference that, since she's our elementary literacy guru.
I don't want you to feel pressure to make anything up. Like I'm just curious. Those are both good jumps. So.
No, and I'm not surprised. So, over the last few years, we've implemented the Virginia Literacy Act, and I will say that in research shows that it takes 3 to 5 years for a program to fully show its face and show that it is working. And my hope is that this was just year 2 of implementation for the VLA for the elementary level, and this is the first year for the middle school level. So my hope is that we are going to continue to see those trends. We've had a lot of training in the science of reading. The state has mandated it. We've had teachers that have done additional training outside of that. And I think overall, the knowledge for our teachers at the elementary level is significantly higher than it used to be. And also the programs that we're using, the teachers are becoming more and more comfortable with those programs, and they're with the 2 of those together, The hope is that these are the results that we will see as we continue on with these programs. It also, the knowledge is really the most important part, and one of the things that we're going to be working on this school year is flexible group instruction. We've got the tier 1 instruction pretty well down, but now we're going to really, really hone in on that flexible group instruction and really, really zero on what individual students need. So like I said, it's a 3 to 5 research-based number that it takes 3 to 5 years to show that something works. And so we're very pleased and appreciative of all the hard work our teachers have put in to get these results so quickly. So we hope to see those trend results continue.
So the quick reframe on that is that the magic dust was we've been working very hard. We've been growing people up and helping them to understand more about what they're doing, and the results are starting to bear fruit, and we hope to see that continue. And I'm certain that as we put some building blocks in place at the elementary level, that should help with what we're building off of when we get to the middle school level as we implement the same kind of framework, yes?
Correct. And the middle school is actually, they are going through their training as well and learning those programs. So we hope that combination of what's being done at the elementary and doing the same thing at the elementary level, hopefully the two of those will boost those even more.
Yeah, that was my point is consistency between the two levels as we grow with the kids that you're putting together the same kind of information. That's really great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions about the reading? Sure. On the science. So for science, you see quite a bit of fluctuation across some of the schools. So Capron, you see quite a bit there with that 1 year, and then some fluctuation following that. Meharan has been a steady aggregation around that one level there, but a slow decline there as far as the actual numbers. Nottoway reached a peak and then has been declining slowly since then. And then Riverdale kind of fluctuating again around a central point. Middle school, you can see that similar up and down shape. You can kind of see that shape at Capron, you can see that shape at Riverdale, you can see that shape at middle school, which that parallel, if you look at when the standards were implemented and when the state started trying to change a little bit about the cut scores and the rigor of how we're implementing, and also the introduction of the passage-based questions for science. I would say that those correlate with that pattern that you see across those 3 schools, Capron, Riverdale, and middle school. And then high school, we see that drop last year and then a recovery this year back up to the former level for science. And it should just also be mentioned that that's a combination for the high school that they were tested. Your earth science and chemistry were tested on 2010 in the fall and on 2018 in the spring, with some variations for term graduates. Any questions about science? Just a reminder that this is looking just at 5th grade and 8th grade for elementary and middle respectively, and then high school, it's that mix of courses. Okay. All right, next is our social studies and history. So you can see in general, there's a peak and decline shape with the exception of the middle school where we saw kind of that inverted pattern. Where it was very high a few years ago, then decreased the last 2 years, and then now is back up approaching previous levels, and you see a similar shape there at the high school. So secondary, that you can see that shape across both, with a lower absolute value at the high school, but same shape. Any questions about what you're seeing there? I'll just close out by just mentioning that as the state considers working with cut scores further, these pass rates, we may see these values mean something different moving forward very soon. That's something that's kind of on the edge as far as development, but please just keep in mind when you're looking at these, first of all, that it's not an accountability snapshot, so this doesn't necessarily correlate to on track, off track, or distinguished, and also that these pass rates may change as the definition of passing changes under the state's guidance.
Board members, any additional questions, comments?
Yes, these are school-oriented data from each school. What about grade level data? Are you gonna present that to us?
Not tonight,
I know it's not tonight.
but I certainly can.
Also, we talked about the, determining the levels of, the levels you just mentioned. When will that be determined?
The cut scores?
No, the levels of, excellence.
Oh, the accountability,
Yeah.
yes. So accountability, as you know, has multiple components. Right now, the CT credential collection is actually in progress. I was working with the CT manager today to make sure we get that through and get everything where that needs to be. That's a piece of the accountability system. So, and that's one of the last pieces for us. Once all of the pieces are in, the state will work on doing that official result.
So when do you think, all the data would be in for and close out all the, SOLs for 25, 26?
So typically the state releases accountability results in the fall, and my understanding is that that is their plan this year. I, in the past, have given estimates based on internal data, our information, and that's something I can do as well if that is desired. But this,
I would like to see the grade level data. I'm just a math person, but if the other board members do not want to see it, that's fine with me, but I want to see grade level data.
yeah, that's very, very feasible.
Yeah, I think that's a good ask, Ms. Lee, so I support that. The other, just looking through some of this, I think it might be important for us to look at as a board how we set goals around specific numbers. So there's a certain standard that we can set that is not necessarily state driven, but is board driven in some areas. So to say that our goal is that we achieve at least 75% pass rates in all subject areas at all schools, or something like that. That's just a off the cuff kind of comment. And to get to that, what we would want to see division wide is a 3% increase per year, or a 5%, so that we have some measurable way that we're setting some of those targets. Everything is not a test pass rate, but because of how important it is in the accountability framework, and as much as I think the state is likely to tinker with some of the cut scores and the changes that they have on what rigor is related to a passing test score, I think we should probably be monitoring that and be thinking about measurable ways that we would want to indicate success. So I share that mostly for your thoughts, not that we have to make decisions tonight, and also for maybe Dr. Thompson to go back and talk with the team about maybe what internally they're thinking about related to that growth, and how we can have that as continuous updates moving forward.
Okay, well, if there are no further questions, thank you. I've tried to keep it brief tonight. You'll have to let me know how I did, but.
You did terrific, Ms. Vogue.
Okay.
We appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your questions as well.
And that's coming from a guy that doesn't like colors a whole lot. You did a great job with colors on the slides too. All right, I think our next agenda item is an update on summer school.
Good evening, everybody. All right, so these are initial numbers because summer school just finished on Thursday, so I'm gonna give you as much as I can right now. So we're gonna start with enrollment numbers. Last time we reported on summer school, we gave you the recommended numbers for summer school. So I have on this slide, the number of recommendations for elementary was 348. And as of June 17th, our enrollment numbers were 146 for elementary. For middle, the recommended were 169, and the actual enrollment on June 17th prior to the start of summer school was 106, and then for high school it was 114 recommended and 73 for actual enrollment, and that was enrollment by the parent to fill out the paperwork and return to school. I do have some rough estimates for the actual student attendance. They're not finalized yet. We're still working on getting all of those numbers solidified. So we had about 136 that actually came to summer school and were present for at least 5 days. And then we had 66 at the middle school and then 56 at the high school. Those are just preliminary estimates at this point. The purpose and the expectations of summer school, we refer to it as Summer Learning Academy. Purpose and goals were for elementary and middle, reduction of the summer slide and promotion depending on student needs. So some students, they weren't being retained, but having them coming to summer school, they wouldn't have as much of a summer slide coming to summer school. And then some students did need, in order to advance to the next grade level, they needed to come to summer school for promotion. And then for high school, it is credit recovery, expectations for academic growth, remediation, and student engagement, or maximum growth, flexible small group instruction, and high engagement. All right, so this is our elementary math data from IXL. We did a pre and post test for grades K through 8. So we had 2 students at the beginning that were above grade level, and we ended, this is elementary math, and we had 9 at the end of summer school. On grade for beginning was 19, and then that increased to 22. Below grade, we went from 43 down to 32, and then far below grade, it was a decrease from 43 to 25. And then here are the reading scores. Above grade level, we went from 1 to 10. On grade, 17 to 14. Below grade, 40 to 19, and then far below grade, 51 to 26. And then this is the middle school math data. And the middle school English data. And these ranges are as determined by IXL. I can confirm at this time that there were no summer graduates. And SHS did not complete the pre and post test, as students are graded on their content within the course at the high school level. And we are in the preliminary stages of working with the high school to solidify their data as well. Any questions?
Can you remind me again, was this a significant increase in the number of kids that attended summer school this year over last year?
Quite significantly. I think we only had about 90 some students last year, so this was quite significant in the increase. We started our collection earlier. We actually started, I think, April 28th, I think, was when I sent the email to start collecting that data. We also made sure that we followed up with parents if we didn't hear back. We were very meticulous throughout the whole process to make sure that we had as many students to attend as possible.
Yeah, it looks like those efforts paid off pretty well, so thanks for that. I mean, to get at about 50% or above of what's recommended, that's pretty challenging. Families are busy during the summer, and so getting those couple of extra weeks, and I appreciate that work. Board members, other questions, comments? I think I only have one other question that's really more of a, can we do it? I would love to know how our students that were recommended and attended summer school, how well they perform in the following year as compared to those that were recommended and did not attend summer school. And so I think that's probably a Miss Bogue, figure out how to make that happen in the data world question. But I think it's important to share that kind of information with families if it yields good results, because it can put a value on what attending summer school can do for your student, even though they're giving up some weeks of their free time. That investment can sometimes pay off, and we see that in the pre-test, post-test results. See general growth across all areas. Even if we didn't get all the way to on grade or above grade, we still see general growth in positive trends across the information that was presented. It would be great to track them longitudinally across the year. I think Ms. Bogue said challenge accepted, so we'll look for that.
She always does. Thank you.
All right, our last item, or our next item is work session dates for 26 and 27, and I think this was just a discussion item. We've generally selected our meeting schedule to have a work session every other month on the fourth Monday, so our normal board meeting being on the second Monday, and then every other month we've been doing a work session on the fourth Monday. Is there any need to change that schedule, or can we just maintain that same meeting schedule? All right. Yeah, let's take a formal vote on that just to make sure that's our established meeting schedule, so that we don't have any questions about that. So is there anybody that would like to put that in the form of a motion?
I move that we approve the work session dates for 2026, 27.
For fourth Mondays every other month?
Mondays.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Williams.
Second.
A second by Ms. Lane. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. And then you'll also note in your packet on board docs, the next item was just our appointments. And I do have an edit to this, so I had to ask Miss Artist to put this together for us, just so we had a list of who was participating on which committees. We had appointed in January on the Student Discipline Committee Mr. Williams, in addition to Dr. Goodwin and Dr. Tyndall. So those are the three representatives for the Student Discipline Committee. And I don't think there's any other changes. It was, but we do not have an active representative for WHRO. Is that correct that you could find? Okay. I'll have some discussion, and I'll see if I'll appoint a WHRO representative next time, unless anybody wants to step up and volunteer now. Okay. That is, we have one more, the traffic lights discussion. So Ms. Hobbs, you wanted to chat about traffic lights. So who's responsible for maintaining? Are all of them functioning to the best of our knowledge at this point? I know Capron was a question in previous meetings, and I had been confirmed that we had gotten Capron at least working for the time being, but that was also a lingering item from our sheriff's office MOU discussion about how, with the addition of speed cameras, would they be able to assist us with some of the functioning, because we were promised that those lights would be in good working order when that ticketing system went into place. So Dr. Thompson, I don't know how prepared you are to talk through that, but you are the operations director for another few days. So any comments on that, where we stand?
Yes, so the sheriff and I have attempted to set. So again, I apologize with my being out last week that I messed it up. So, but I'm looking forward to meeting with him, and again, I'm hopeful that he'll take that part over. Since during this month, I have answered at least 2 questions from parents, but they got their tickets back in May, and so they reached out to the lieutenant. Oh, is it Fuller? Fuller. Lieutenant Fuller, who's kind of the point person on that, and so I think the days that they got the tickets, the lights were not working, and so they wanted to know if we had a record of which dates the lights were working and which we were not. And so at that point, I checked with Dr. Melby, and he didn't have he wasn't able to address those two, like he didn't have a record of when they were, I guess he was able to say that they were fixed after that. So I was operating under the assumption that they had gotten fixed from the last time, but I will say I drive past the Capering one every day, but I think I'm driving before the light should turn on, so I do not have any firsthand knowledge of whether it was working appropriately. But I will ask the sheriff, and then I'll get back to you at the next meeting with an update on that, if that
Is
suits.
it possible to send a notice out to parents at the beginning of the year before school starts, whatever, to say to them, we do still have this light system in place? Some parents are concerned because there's a difference in the speed, in Capering as opposed to the speed down here. And like some of them, they might start down here, then they get caught down there because they're driving faster. So if we could just let them know, because we can't control that. It does need to be slower in the elementary level, because we don't know what children will do at any given time. And so, yes, we hope that there's never a child out there on the road, but things happen. So, yes, it should be slower there. But if we could just inform them before school starts, so that, hey, this is what we're doing to keep our children safe.
Okay.
And so, if you would please attend to the change, not just the fact that there is a light, but the change in speed.
That might be a really great back to school kind of just safety update in general for like social media too.
Yeah.
That, hey, school zones are going to be active again. It'd be a good opportunity for our new director of operations to do kind of a check of those lights to make sure that they're operational to start, and also maybe to post some of the contact information for if there's a light issue. Where's the best place to report that? I know that's one of the ones that Dr. Harris Muhammad and I had fielded toward the end of the year was the Capering lights. They were either the eastbound or the westbound light. One of them wasn't working, and it was the eastbound light, and so making sure that got rectified was one of the end of the year kind of items that I had forwarded on to her to work with Dr. Milby on at that point. Thanks, Ms. Hobbs. That was a good topic. Anything else that you were looking for in that?
Also, the open house, send out a copy of the statement that's saying something about lights.
Oh, having the same message available when folks go. Yeah, that's a good idea. That is the end of our open session agenda. So if the board would like to move pursuant to section 2.2-3711A 1 and 2 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, the board, upon a motion and a second, will convene a closed meeting to consider the following items. That would be a personnel report and information around FOIA, an update on transportation department, and also a personnel performance item to be updated by the superintendent. Do I have a motion?
I'm moving to the closed session.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Grizzard, a second by Ms. Lane. All those in favor, or any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, we will enter into closed session here, so we'll ask that any members of the public go ahead and exit this area. We will reconvene in this same area to return to open session and take any action that we may need to take in open session following our discussion.
Man, great night.
Board members, there is some